Welcome to In or Out, the European Ultimate Federation show about the European Ultimate Club season. I'm your host, Ravi, and we got a bit of a different show today because we're not talking about rankings and algorithms or anything like that. That's all done. That's all decided. We're now here for the final show. It's the EUCF coming up this weekend. 16 teams in every division battling it out to see who's going to be the top club team in Europe. It's been an amazing year. First time we've been able to run this whole season, and now we're going to see what it actually produces. People have been kind of focused on Worlds, people have been focused on many other things, but now full focus comes back to Europe, and we're excited to preview this tournament with you all. We have a great show today because it's not just going to be me and one guest. We actually have 6 total guests. We're going to have 2 different guests coming in for each division to preview them one by one. But let me start here just by explaining a bit about the EUCF and the format. So I'll let the presentation come up on screen. And we can go straight into the next slide where we will talk about what the format looks like. So there's going to be 4 pools in every division. There's 16 teams, 4 pools of 4. If you want to advance into the bracket, you have to not come last place. 4th place teams knocked out. You're going to be playing for 9th place is the best you can do. If you get first in your pool, you go straight to the top 8, straight to quarterfinals, as you see here. 1A, if all goes to seed, will face 1D in the semi, 1B to 1C in the semi. And if you're going to be a 2nd or 3rd place team, B and C cross over with each other, and A and D cross over with each other. So don't need to memorize this or anything. We'll have a nice review of this and a recap slide for this for every division we go into. So just a note for everyone out there. Also keep in mind, this is a live show. If any of you all are in the chat, have any questions, have any comments, we would like to get a lively show going on here, so please feel free. We'll respond to that as we see things going on. We're on the Solid Sport Network as well as on YouTube. Hopefully some of y'all out there can give some comments in the chat. All right, let's move into the first division here, which is the mixed division. For that, I'm going to bring in guests Benji Reese and Lorcan Murray onto the show. Benji and
Lily. literally like a minute ago, Lily decided that she wanted to be involved. So, can't. This is
runs in the family. Then
runs in the family. You can't buy this. Do you want to say hello? We've only got her for a couple more days. We found this lovely couple of retirees to take her on. Plot twist: it's actually my parents. So Lily and
Great.
Sophie are going to home anew. Sorry, Lily.
Well, that's how Benji's doing. Lorcan, how are you doing? How are you doing today?
I can't live up to that. I'm fine. I was in work until half an hour ago. No cats.
How have you all felt about following this whole season, this whole new structure? I'll start with Benji. What was your opinion, UCS going so far and now getting finally the final show?
As someone who's not had to play in it, I loved it. Absolutely loved it. This will come as a surprise to no one that I'm a proper geek on this whole thing, trying to work out how does this affect the algorithm, what are the 2nd and 3rd order effects, where's the connectivity coming from, and seeing it all come together has been very exciting. I know that people who played in it, sometimes they just wanted to know, do we have to win rather than how much should we be winning by? Is it actually better to lose this game because then we can win an easier game later by more? There's a little bit of that. So obviously when you get feedback at the end of the season from kind of other interested parties, their things might be a little bit different, but it was great going into that last weekend of Summer Tour as well, where there were so many wildcards up for grabs, and we were kind of looking at it really is going to come down to a point or two in a couple of the divisions as to who qualifies. I thought that was great.
Lorcan, any opinions on your side?
Well, as we know, maths is a well-established form of witchcraft. And as a good Irish Catholic boy, I refuse to engage with it, so I hated the system.
Excellent. Well,
the only bonus was the fact that it kept Atletico out.
Okay. Lorcan trying to make Finnish enemies here, and I guess none of them are watching, so probably some. Great. I think we'll go straight into it. We're going to start with the mixed division here.
I agree. I think semi-final winner 1 is going to be really tough to beat.
I think you've been sleeping on quarterfinal winner 3 all season, man.
Well, It's funny you say that.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
Go on, sir.
All right. So this is the full slate of teams. We're going to go pool by pool and really sink our teeth into each pool and really get into what we think, how this is all going to shake out. But before we do that, I asked you all to prepare what your kind of storyline of this division at this tournament was. And Benji, I think you had the first one. So when you see this whole division, what comes to mind for you?
So mixed always has a reputation as like the chaos division, right? How like it's entropy all over the place. You've no idea what's going to happen. But I put it to you that of the three divisions, mixed maybe has the least spice of them all. Looking at it strange, it feels like, okay, that feels exactly right. You don't look at anything there and think, that surprises me. That feels a bit off. Like it just looks and feels kind of right.
So your storyline is that it looks kind of locked in, and it's actually maybe the least exciting.
I wouldn't say the least exciting,
Okay.
but I would say on paper, I think it is on paper, it's the most straightforward, I think.
All right, Lorcan, what's your storyline of the mixed division here at the EUCF?
My storyline is also about entropy. It's about the heat death of the sidelines because the conditions are going to be absolutely mental. And I just think mixed, because it is subject to the most variance, it's going to be the one that impacts the most. On Friday, even though the weather reports do change, they don't really change away from incredibly windy and rainy on Friday. And that's going to open up some opportunities for teams to steal ahead. Things like zones, which are always a different measure in mixed, as well as your opportunities and your ability to just take shots. And whenever something becomes available, there will be loads of turnovers. And that's generally where a lot of the unpredictability from the mixed side comes from. So on the Friday, I think you can see people steal a win here or there and then see how that carries through into the rest of the tournament. So I would actually go against Benji, which is one of my favorite things to do. I would say Friday, it's going to be, there's just a really good chance of a couple of upsets on Friday based on a couple of players and stuff we will get into later.
Would you say, when we'll get into this when we get into the pools, that maybe some teams from certain countries that are used to a lot of wind might have a certain advantage going into that Friday?
Oh, yeah, definitely. You've got to be wary of Tartu. You've got to be wary of Heck.
The Estonian winds.
I'm just telling you, man. They're on a sea as well. But same coastline, technically.
Okay, well, let's dive right into Pool A, and we'll start off here. Traditionally, it's you have the one seed going into it. And of course, the way we did things, we had a pool draw, so everything after that was semi-random. I mean, like 5 through 8 got sorted, then 9 through 12, etc. It did actually end up here that the 5 seed ended up with the 1 seed, which usually doesn't happen. But if you do straight snake seeding. But in this case, we do have Reading there sitting from number 5 in Pool A. So, yeah, I'll start with, since Lorcan was just talking, Benji, what are your thoughts when you look at this pool?
It's been a bit of a dream debut season for Tisataka, hasn't it, when you think about it? If you look at their official regular season results, it is undefeated. They did not lose a game in EUCS play this year. 14 wins, 0 losses, and they're not exactly a paper tiger, right? Within that, you've got victories over Seskidistas in Freiburg. You've got 3 victories over Disconnection. You beat Deep Space back in Spring Tour. Like, that is a very strong regular season. Like, they are justifiably the number 1 seed for a team that's kind of making its first foray into the mixed division. Like, we're familiar with seeing MUC in the open division, and although they haven't qualified for ECF in a while, I think, Woodcheekers is a program out of Munich. They're former multiple EUCF champions, so that can't be discounted. And you look at the roster, like the top, like there are some excellent players on this roster. Looking at World Games level players like Torben Hernschmeyer, Linnaeus Seibert, and there was also a sneaky Lorenzo Pavan on the roster, which not quite sure where he came up from. Doesn't sound particularly German to me, but I think they are justifiably the number 1 seed in the tournament. Reading as the 2nd seed. This is a tough draw. Like any other, maybe like on a different year, you could easily see Reading in that top 3, top 4 of the teams that are seeded outside the podium finishes. I think Reading might be the most likely to break into that just because they've got that consistent period of excellence where they've always been rough kind of a semi-final team. So even though the path there might be a little bit more difficult than it is in previous years, Reading have still got the quality to do that. Puke and Savage, they're the bottom seeds in their groups of 4. Looking at it, it's going to be that's a pretty tough start for them. They both start off with TC Talca and Reading, and then they play each other last game of the pool on Friday, which I think I'd be very surprised if that game doesn't decide who takes third in the pool, with TC Talca and Reading taking the top 2 spots.
Yeah, I'd agree. Savage is like probably the result of last season on the club scene was when they opened their tournament against Reading and a universe point loss, and that was huge. I don't think they're going to be able to do. Perhaps that's about as far as they'll get this year, if we're being generous to them. They don't quite have the depth and talent, especially Katarzyna Kampala isn't there, so I do think they're really going to struggle on the female matching player side as well to keep up with these teams. TC Tauscher, which I know I'm saying wrong, the Life Aquatic with Steve Zizou, which is what it was called in Germany, is like, they might be considered their first foray onto the mixed team, but that is originally a university team from Munich. And basically it's the last ride for all these German veterans, from the Munich Ultimate Club, from the Chicas, who were putting in a lot of work, like you say, weren't really making waves on the big or on the highest level in the Opens divisions, respectively. So they've come together. They all know each other. They're playing for each other. I don't think they're really going to have a mental battle because they're there to have fun, but they're also incredibly deep. Huge veterans. They've been playing together, some of them for 20 years. That's just the Munich Mixed Club, right? And it's a thing that a lot of them started in university together 15 years ago. That is a legitimate outfit with a deep history and roots in each other. Like, do not look at them and think, it's a wonder season for them. This is riding off into the sunset. There's a very good chance that they do. There's nothing else to really add on Reading apart from, I know I keep throwing it out there, they're playing with set lines. And I'm not a huge fan of that, but talent throughout. So I don't think there's much point in dwelling on them too long. I think Emma Klima, Becky Thompson are absolutely fantastic. They're two of the best female matching players in that whole pool. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of Conor Hogan as well. I do think they've taken some big losses. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, Hoagie's, he makes the highlights happy, I think.
Which I'm always a fan of. But I do think they've taken critical losses this season to Deep Space and to Lemmings. And like you said, just kind of outside of that semi-finals contention range. Same with Pook. Manon Coyne is incredible. Kosi is incredible, but not the deepest team around.
Yeah, and did you see this pool finishing differently than chalk, or do you think it's kind of finishing? This one's kind of chalked up.
Chalk it down, kid.
I do want to say with Reading that they've lost obviously some players, but they have gained, some pretty handy pickups as well. Hannah Brew is in the mixed division for the first time in who knows how long, and having one of the best female matching handlers in the division obviously doesn't hurt. CJ Colicchio is an absolute matchup nightmare. I'm going to peel back the curtain a little bit. I won't say who I texted someone because remember Deep Space versus Reading at Elite Invite was kind of curtailed halfway through because Tom Fisher broke his collarbone, I think, and they played it like a little bit later, but it wasn't being filmed at all. So I was texting someone kind of what's going on, and at one point I texted Andy Huxley to CJ for a score. He absolutely was not open, because that's the sort of thing that like those players can do, is that even when you're not necessarily making good decisions, you can still get away with it.
That's how I live my life, mate.
Oh, yes.
All right, that's enough for Pool A. We'll go on to Pool B. Pool B, we got Deep Space, the number 2 seed, coming in against Disconnection Freiburg. Little outfit called Peltz, never really heard of them, and Heck from Edinburgh. Lorcan, I'll let you start off. What do you see in this pool?
First off, I want to give a huge shout out to Deep Space because I love a fighting champion, and that's what they are. Like 18-3 on the season. Are you kidding me? Ranked 2nd overall, just swanging and or banging all season long. You have to respect that. You have to believe that's going to carry them through. They've beaten Seski, they've beaten Disconnection before this season 15-10. They've beaten Nullucht, lost to Mosquitoes and Teeth and Padova. That was quite a while ago. Some strong results. Largely the same team from last year that won the European Championships. A lot of people say, like, well, it's obvious they lost Axel Malin. That's a big loss. He was huge last year, but then they pick up Kate Gibson, and you're like, well, that's a pretty huge player to pick up. Not quite the same role, but brilliant to have them there. I love the way Yttermendy plays the game. Leila Denniston, I've been a fan of for years. And someone I was quite impressed with the UK Nationals when we were there was Ian Tate. I imagine other people are already aware of him because I don't pay as much attention as them, but I was very impressed with him. Big man, made a lot of plays. Disconnection, I feel like I'm wrong about a lot, so maybe they'll do much better. Coming in with what I thought was a hilarious 4-10 record, but picking up the important wins and some close losses. They did push Seski. They have pushed Team. Close win over Nullux in Freiburg. We'll see how it all blends down. There's going to be lots and lots of turnovers. I do think in this pool, we'll come back to it later. I do think in this pool, those two teams will come out on top, and it'll be an interesting matchup when they go ahead against each other. Ideally, in my heart, Pelt versus Disconnection will be the game to watch on this day. I have a feeling it's going to be Pelt against Heck. Heck aren't the most impressive team in this, but like I said, in those conditions when they've just got huge shooters like Cameron Dick, no relation, just happens to share two names of the two most famous Scottish players of all time, is quite a good player and can lead them. And Alexander Hiley's done a fantastic job alongside him. This is their first season founding the club and growing it from there. When they match up against Pelt, it will be quite interesting. I think Pelt has been getting better all season long, but I don't want to give too much more away than that. Not afraid to get into shooting battles, and they have a couple of different defensive looks. Like if you can play against a zone comfortably, it'll stand to you well on Friday. The alternative is if you're fine just picking it up, boosting it, and playing more defense, that will also stand to you quite well on Friday. And I think that's two teams, Heck and Pelt, who can do that quite well. So honestly, I do think this will probably go chalk again.
Interesting. Yeah. Interesting. Benji, what are your thoughts? I think before I let you go into yours, my initial impression is that because of the conditions, Pelt and Heck being from such windy areas might have a better chance against teams like Disconnection than they would otherwise. But Benji, go ahead.
Yeah, I think Deep Space probably have too much quality not to finish top of the pool. It's crazy that you're talking about, additions to the roster, and not that you glossed over it, but adding a World Games player in Rachel Nathan's not exactly bad. Also, again, Sussex bias coming through because I have to get in and want to show. I think the Jack and Sarah Hawkyard are both phenomenal. Jack is one of the most toolsy players I've ever seen, even if he lacks a little bit of polish. And Sarah is, frankly, ridiculous. It's great to see her get a big spotlight. Disconnection, I see what you mean about in a slightly muddier game, could Pelt and Heck grind it out over them? And I think they could. Like, Disconnection also a good example of how the algorithm makes them look like views upon them more favorably than the record does. Because 4-10, you would think never a record that should qualify you for Euros. But then you look at the teams that they've lost to, and have they lost to any bad teams in there? No. Everyone they lost to was either a top 8 team or was Manchot, who didn't get enough games in, and they were 11th at that point anyway. And so actually, they're consistently playing good competition. So, the fact that they're losing games isn't such a problem necessarily. And that makes a lot of sense to me. I will say that I think partly, if not mostly to annoy Lorcan, I do have Heck over Pelt.
I will add before I rise to that challenge. Yeah, you think the worst conditions, Disconnection might be a bit more vulnerable in that situation. I would struggle to find any female matching player I would feel comfortable covering Joanna Erdmann in this pool. And then you've got Daniel Turk who can just send it to her. So,
I mean, and Disconnection are a team as well that they're no strangers to necessarily winning ugly if they had to. Like, they are well experienced and they absolutely can, just knuckle down and grind things out when they need to. In terms of younger players, I really like Pia Bankovitz's game. She's just a natural finisher. I think she's great.
Yeah, the one thing on their resume that I see is the loss to Nullach, which you said they are ninth, I believe.
Ninth,
so
yes,
they're just out of the top 8. That's 12-9. That's the one. I think that's maybe the weakest game on their resume. And then on the other side of that, they have a 15-8 win over Tartu Turbulence. So they show that they can bring it at certain times and are a bit high variance. And so Yeah, we'll see how it shakes out. I think that's enough thoughts on Pool B. Let's go to Pool C and see how this division shakes out. Pool C, we got Cescadistas from Strasbourg in third, number 3 seed coming in. Tartu Turbulence, aforementioned, number 7. Nulokt, number 9. And Sky This Warsaw, number 13. I will say one thing, because I think on a previous show I mentioned that wasn't sure if Helen Terra would be coming for Tartu. I have confirmed she is in the U.S. right now, but is flying in for UCF and will be there for Tartu. And I think that does
Has she
change
been
quite a
playing-
bit about how we think that team is going to do, because, yes, she will be there. She'll be jet lagged, but she'll be there.
Was she playing this weekend in the USAU series, or has she just been?
Don't think she actually made it into any of the club teams. I think she found out her trip a little bit later than she would have liked to, so didn't end up. I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
America's loss is our gain.
Yeah,
Certainly.
So let Lorcan go first last time. Benji, why don't you kick us off with what you see in Pool C?
It's nice to see Cescadistas at Euros, isn't it? After they unceremoniously chumped it the last time round with 2 universe point, and that is maybe something to think about with them, is that they've shown they are more than good enough to get to those like big games, big occasions, but they haven't necessarily got it over the line in the past couple of years. In 2022, at the first Elite Invite, I think they lost in the final there to Guayota. And then last year, obviously, they lost in the final of regionals on Universe. And then they lost in the game to go on Universe. And then this year, they made the final of the Elite Invite, where they lost to Lemmings on Universe. And, well, they played the Summer Tour in Freiburg, of course, where they lost to Disconnection, lost to Tiefseetaucher on Universe. So that is the big thing with Cescadistas, is when it comes down into the clutch, how good can they be, especially when you consider that it's been quite a long campaign for a fair few of these players. Of course, like some of the standouts would have just come back from, this is not a problem that's exclusive to Cescadistas, of course, but thinking about like some of their key players who do a lot of the work for them a lot of the time, players like Gaël Ancelin, for example, or Justine Bru, they'll have had long campaigns in Australia for WUC, and how much has that taken out of them is something that I think is going to be not insignificant. If they've come out and they're still relatively fit and they've got a lot left in the tank, they should win this pool easy. But you've got a streaky team like Tartu Turbulence, and if you're off and they're on, they absolutely they can upset you. Everyone loves watching and talking about Tartu. They're just great fun. They're just completely bombs away. Obviously, Jakob Tam's gone nuclear now. He's windmill winner with Super Team, and was in the final of Tom's tourney playing for Mooncatchers. You already mentioned Helen Terra, who's huge. Everyone I know who I talk to about it says just keep watching Marin Rabba, because it's gonna happen. Like the breakout is if it's not happened yet, it's literally just about to.
I think a big thing to take account of Tartu, and it's interesting as well, because Marin Rabba is fantastic. Kristen Luritz as well is a really good player for them. Neither of whom saw their most recent qualification campaign. They actually played really, really well. And as a result, I think to succeed that well and then bring in 2 incredible players, who they did admittedly have when they played in Leuven, and because they lost all their games in Leuven, maybe they won 1, and then they won all the games in Warsaw, and that's how they wound up qualifying, which is a hell of a comeback. But again, the losses were like Reading, Disconnection, Nullock, Deep Space, Seski, all fantastic teams. Then you said, like, just to get those 2 players back and come to this tournament and have Terra available, that's a huge boost, I think, as well. Just playing without them helps round out your squad a bit more in preparation and be so successful in that way. So if they are coalescing a bit more than they were last season, I kind of jumped on them a bit too early last season, and they got taken out by Reading in the quarterfinals. But it was still quite a lot of fun. I still don't think they can beat Seski. I get what you're saying. Seski have come so close so many times this season, and they seem to stumble at the last block. This isn't the last block.
No,
we're talking about a quarterfinal against Tartu. Absolutely.
I must admit that I do have this pool going to chalk. Not unlike maybe the chalk that we'll see Nullac use when they bring that break slate that they seem to use whenever they score a break. I can't remember who it is. One of them I know is a roofer, and that's why they have it. Like Nilak for the past couple of years have been, they built themselves a little bit more, and they are now no strangers to this sort of occasion. You wonder whether the fact that they've maybe got some more experienced campaigners who've maybe played a bit more on the international stage at the sort of youth levels as well, whether that will help them. For Sky this, I must admit, I would love to be pleasantly surprised, but I think they have I think they have a pretty tough go in this pool, except of course that it's not the first time that Warsaw and Nulakt have met this season, because they actually played at the spring tour back in Malmö, and Sky this won 15-12. So, maybe if Nulakt aren't on their game, absolutely there's a chance for Sky this to make the bracket.
I just think Nulakt, they did not have a good time in Malmö. Like, that was not them at their best. They've gotten significantly better. Leuven and Freiburg were both big steps forward for them. Both very young, talented teams. I feel like Nulakt just Sky this, but like 2 years ahead, almost, or maybe like 1 year ahead. There's so much young talent on Sky this, like Zuzana, Nadej, Krzysztof, Litvinsky, and Krzysztof Rud, and Benedikt Esker. They're all under 20 or 20. They're fantastic. Zuzana played with Troubles last year, came fourth in the women's division, so has some experience playing at the higher level with the high variable of the conditions and just young people going for it. I think it could work out. I think Sky this have 2 players who are over 23, and that's it. So that's kind of a mental patient. But, mental patients are dangerous if you don't take them seriously. Nulakt, this is the tournament where they want to step up. They want to prove like they're on the journey that they hope to be on. This is the tournament where they step up, go out and beat 2 teams in this pool, or go out and make the quarterfinal of this tournament. And I think they got a pretty good chance. I certainly slept on them for a while last season. They were like fun to watch. This season, their ambition is definitely make quarters, if not further, and it'll really define their reputation in Europe if they can do it or not.
All right, so clearing it all out. All that said, looks like there's a little more room for some excitement in this pool. But if you're predicting it all, do you think it's going to shock, or is anything? Do you actually predict one of these teams to overcome?
Nah, for me this is
shock again.
As you see it, sadly, the only upset I've got so far is again, to Lorcan's annoyance, Hecko for Pelt.
That's fine. You've been wrong all your life. There's no need to change
I have.
now.
Gladly.
I do think Pool A and B pretty locked in as chalk. C and D far more susceptible to change. I haven't backed that up with my picks for Pool C, but as another person who's been wrong all their life, I don't expect that to change for me either. I think this will go chalk, but just someone's going to get a drop on the end zone. It'll turn around for a break and 2 more scores, and that's how Zeski beat something like that. So,
all right,
very spicy pool.
Okay, let's go to the last pool. Maybe we'll finally get some more upsets picked here in pool play. It's the mixed division with all kinds of win. There's no way everything is going to chalk. But anyways, we'll see what we think of this one. Leamington Lemmings, who won the Elite Invite at number 4 coming in, leading this pool. Mosquitoes from Austria coming in at number 6. Glasgow, number 10 here, and Padova Rangers without Pavan, who has moved on to TFC Tauker, as mentioned before, coming in the 15th place. So, yeah, I think this one, Lorcan, I'll let you start off here.
I think the Lemmings are on the opposite season-long trajectory to Nullicht. The way Nullicht have gotten better each tournament, it seems like the Lemmings have been stepping down. Yes, like you said, they did qualify by winning an Elite Invite, and they were incredible. Reading, Disconnection, Deep Space, Seski, all scalps that they took and added to their collection. They did not have a great time. Didn't look as impressive. Lost to Deep Space twice, which was understandable. Beat Glasgow, but it was on Universe Point. They beat Glasgow in the group stages last year, 15-6. Glasgow, in these conditions, they're going to think they can take a chunk out of you, and that's like the 10th seeded team coming into this. They've got great players. Again, another team with like loads of young talent. The Pantlings are brilliant. Persephone Pantling's been fantastic. It was fantastic last season. Ruver Pantling's stepped up and it's been great. This season, I am curious to see who people are going to try and cover Persephone paneling with over the course of the day. They have brilliant connections to the GB Under-24 program as well. Isaac Davies, who's an offensive handler for them, was a coach. Rosie Bailey, Sasha Haynes, and their D-line, both cutters, and then Ryan Katma had a real coming out party last year in the UCF. Their best player, O-line cutter, has the Under-24s under his belt, has another season. I still think, I'd love to get your opinion on this, Benji. I still think they're the most vulnerable of the top four.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Maybe less of a reflection of Lemmings, and I think that's also partly a reflection on how good I think the top three are. That I think there is a little bit less potential for them to have an off game. Like you mentioned that Lemmings, they didn't have the best time at Summer Tour. They only beat Glasgow on Universe, and they lost to Deep Space twice. Yeah, they did, but they lost to Deep Space twice on Universe. Like that's pushing the reigning champion close. They had a really big win over Reading. They seem to have had Reading's number generally this season, to be honest. Yeah. And like the fact that they have been able to go into bracket games like at the Elite Invite and really put it all together, and they responded well from dropping a game to Nulact early in the tournament there in the pool that was really kind of topsy-turvy and everyone cannibalized everyone else. I still think they have enough to win the pool. Mosquitoes look a lot more formidable than they have done in years past. Obviously, they had a lot of good young talent, but you're looking at some players who are kind of now coming into that roster. Players like Jakob Dunschan, for example, and those are players who are tough to stop. The Angetters have kind of had breakouts in the past couple of years, and you can be sure will have a very big offensive impact as well.
The Angetters are going to be massive tomorrow. Constantine and Christoph are going to be massive on Friday because they're huge throwers, and that's going to be such a boon to have on your team.
Oh yeah.
I also love the fact, I'll let you get back to it. I love the fact Jakob Dunschan, like you said, they've joined the team this year, played with Groot the last 2 seasons. The Angetters, their highlights of their careers, beating Groot last year at EUCF. So I think that's a fun fact. Yeah. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, that Elite Invite win was quality. The big man, Alex Spalholz, is here as well. And again, that's a lot of... There's a lot of size in this pool, I'll put it that way.
And I think everyone was injured all season, and I did ask Jakob Dunschan, is he going to be playing? Apparently, all signs point to he's planning to play. I think he's still a little banged up, but
that's not encouraging.
It'll make a huge... No, it seems like he's pretty willing to play.
Yeah, they'll give it a go, certainly, at any rate. Glasgow, they had a brilliant... what I think, like Reading, you said, they had a brilliant early season. Winning the spring tour in Malmö, and then according to the algorithm, anyway, because I know they don't always use not every team counts every game at every tournament, right? But all their games they played since then have been defeats. So that's not exactly encouraging for a side coming into it on good form. Let's be honest. And
it's the inverse of Tartu.
Yeah, while we think about like Glasgow is they're going to be used to horrible weather, but I think Padova as well. I've played and watched enough Italian teams over the years to know that really annoying flowy breakside movement is an absolute nightmare to stop, and just keeping things low and ticking it over is always tough to stop. I quite like Padova to sneak into the bracket at this pool. I think potentially at Glasgow's expense.
I can see that happening. What I will say in counterance, Birmingham, Audrey Malencon-Fournier wasn't there. Best receiver on the Glasgow roster. The Canadian is fantastic. I love the fact that 2 of their best throwers are in their 40s, the Weds. That's brilliant. Yeah, fair. But that's part of Friday. Also, it's Friday. We're not talking about how far they'll get on Saturday, which is going to murder people with how long it is, especially if you're not top seed. But Friday, shitty conditions, not that much running around. Send it. Could stand to you. I do think Padova, if they can get things working, will do well. Spiriti Gliozzi, big loss for them. I didn't see him making the trip. I did want to go back to Mosquitoes because I think the big surprise here is I think Mosquitoes will beat Lemmings. That's my major upset happening on this day. I think Nicola Hubel is incredible. And like I said, Bailey and Haynes are very good. Going to have their work cut out to try and limit Hubel. The Angaters, I just think they're built for this. And then and the defensive, they're the offensive handlers. Defensive handlers, two of the main ones, Dunshire, who we mentioned. Deutsch Bayer loves hammers. And if weather's crazy and turnovers are aplenty, someone's going to start throwing crazy hammers and they're going to mess up zones with it. I just think they have enough tools. Johanna Roy, the Meister sisters, they're just getting better all the time. They've got enough tools there where they could throw a couple of upsets. And I might be a little bit biased Lemmings. There was something about watching them at UK Nationals. Because I loved them last year. And this year I was just like, I don't know. They just seems to be. That being said, I do want to have one last thing, which is they lost the pre-quarter last year to Tartu, and I imagine they're very angry about that after a fantastic season. So, but yeah, my big upset would be this group. I think would go Mosquitoes, Lemmings, Padova, Glasgow.
All right. Yeah, I also have Mosquitoes winning this one. So let's take that into the final thing we have you guys on here for, which is the picks.
Okay.
So we're going to end each division looking at the overall. Here's a little reminder of what the bracket's going to look like, and just want to get semifinals, finals, and champion out of everybody, including myself. I'll also be included in this. And I'll start with Benji.
Okay, semi-final 1. Tissethacher, top of Pool A against Tartu Turbulence, sneaking into a semi-final spot. The bottom half, I have the other two pool winners, Deep Space and Seskidistus. I think we get Deep Space versus Tissethacher in the finals. And I've already said this on a podcast about a month ago, so I'm going to stick with it. Deep Space will repeat as European champions.
Okay. Do you want me to do? Yeah, perfect.
Start from the semis.
I think, Teef will go first. I think Nullet will go over Disconnection, and then lose to Teef in what's going to be an all German side of the bracket. I then think Mosquitoes will go up. It'll be Pelt versus Tartu. I picked Pelt to get revenge from the loss when they played each other in Warsaw, and then to go on and beat Mosquitoes. I think Deep Space go up against Reading or Padova in either of those. I can probably be Reading, but in either of those situations, I'm taking Deep Space. Then Seski against Puck or Lemmings. I think that'll be Lemmings over Puck. I think that'll be Seski over Lemmings. I think that'll be Deep Space over Seski, Pelt over Teef, Deep Space against Pelt in the final, Pelt win.
You are drinking some major Kool-Aid injected with
tasty beverage, baby.
Opium.
It's a tasty beverage.
So I'm going to go with, I'm not going to go through the whole bracket, but I'm just taking pool winners. As I said before, I agree. Tissethacher, Deep Space, Seski going to win the pools. They're all going to advance to semis as well. I do think Mosquitoes is going to be the Pool D winner, and so it'll be Mosquitoes versus Tartu in that quarter, which I think will be the spiciest quarter out of all of them. And I'm going to pick Tartu to advance out of that one. So I got the same semis picks as Benji, but I do have Tissethacher versus Seski in the final.
Oh,
and I have Tissethacher taking it. Tissethacher over Seski to win the
presumably on Universe, then guaranteed.
Poor friend. We need to name all the mixes. Sorry, go on.
Come at me.
Thanks, Benji. Thanks, Lorcan. We'll go to a quick break here, and we'll be back with the Open Division in just a sec. And now I'm joined by Amelia Durbin and Steph Rapazzo here to talk about the Open Division. First of all, how y'all doing? Start with Amelia. How's your season been this year?
Yeah, good. It's been very long. Feels like we started 2 years ago. We had trials in like January. So Nationals was moved earlier in the UK because of Worlds. So I haven't played a tournament for 2 months. So it feels weird that Euros is just around the corner.
And Steph, how's it been going for you?
Yeah, great. Happy to be back from Australia. It was a blast over there, and super stoked for EUCF. Can't wait to get to Ostend to hear the weather's going to be fantastic.
Amelia, how's it been? You've been a player in this division. You're going to be competing in the EUCF. We got you here to preview a different division so you could be a little spicier with your takes. How's it been for you playing over this whole year, looking at how things are shaping up, dealing with this whole new ranking system? Maybe give a little taste of what it's like.
I've really enjoyed it because it's made the season a little bit more exciting throughout the whole thing. So every week or every month, there's been an opportunity to kind of check where you are and see how your results are doing. Whereas before, it's so like tournament based. So I think it's done a really, really good thing for people to like buy into the whole season and be really invested in like the drama and the hot takes. And at tournaments, there's been a lot more like, was it a ranked game? Oh my God, it was a ranked game. That means they're going to go up and go down. And so I've personally really enjoyed it. I know that the leadership within Bristol probably have enjoyed it a bit less, with it being quite stressful trying to figure out whether we rank a tournament, what team we need to send, are we even going to qualify, what does our season actually look like. So it's been ups and downs, but for me personally, I've absolutely loved it. I think it's been great.
Well, they can all blame Molly if there's anything they have any problems with it about. So, and Steph, what do you think following this new weird math season over the year?
Yeah, math's not my strong point, but have been loving following along. I think like it really has got the best teams into the competition. I think there's a lot less dead weight, well, we'll say for now, at the bottom of some of the pools, but it's really toughened up. I think, with the qualifier, the way the qualifying's gone, the algorithm, we really get the best teams in, but what now there's like that mystery of the form that they're in now with a bit of a break from summer tour, and even longer past for some of the other teams. But yeah, we're going to get all these teams in, and we really don't know if they've been at training together, if they're coming off a Worlds hangover, if they're, coming off of a Worlds finding form. So I think it's more exciting than it's ever been. And yeah, I'm here for it.
And it's a big change, double in the open division, because there's two changes. One, of course, is the EUCS ranking system, which happens to all the divisions, but another big change, you talk about dead weight, we've reduced from 24 teams to 16 teams. Those will be the first time we have a 16-team open division at the EUCF, which of course is sad that not as many people can come out, but it'll also mean that the competition level is just going to be that much stronger top to bottom of the whole division. So we'll have to see. I think let's get looking into the open division, and we'll start things off looking at the whole scene here. So before we get into all the pools and all the real previews of where we think all the matchups are going to be, what are the big storylines here of this division? Let's start things off with Amelia. What do you think is the big storyline of the Open Division 2024 EUCF?
I feel like it's a tale as old as time now, where people see Clapham and Mooncatchers as the two kind of big dogs in the division, the biggest rivals. From my like slightly clouded perspective, I always see Clapham coming out as like quite clearly beating them. If I think about to Windmill this year, they beat them quite convincingly, and then at Euros in the final last year, they beat them quite convincingly. But I know that Mooncatchers have beaten Clapham, and I sometimes just turn a blind eye to that because those are probably the games I don't watch. But I want to give a shout out to another UK team, which is Chev. I think Chev, after their win over Clapham at UK Nationals last year, have kind of really gone strength to strength. They've picked up loads of new players. They've clearly put in a lot of work. And the final this year at UK Nationals was, although Clapham came out on the win, Chevy looked different. They have a new kind of lease of life. They're really, really talented. They've got some amazing deep receivers. And I'm kind of like hopeful that it's not just going to be a UK Clapham story, that Chev potentially might be able to come out and put their best foot forward at this Euros.
All right, there's a story from the UK side of things. Steph, what's your storyline look at the Open Division?
Yeah, I reckon we got like 6 at the top that are locks. When we talk about locks, like at least advancing to quarterfinals. Moon, Clapham, La Fota, Wall City, and then you go to the opposite side of the curve there, Chevron, and I say Chac as well are advancing. There's no two ways about it. The next 10 for 2 spots in the quarter is anybody's, it's a coin flip, however you want to tail it up. But I think those next 10, there are so many tough games, so many tough calls in these divisions to be able to predict who's going through for those last 2 spots. I think the pre-quarter round is going to be mind-blowing, while potentially those top 4 we see are going to take a rest and watch it all happen. There's going to be some major battles in those pre-quarters, and but I see it as a top 6 and the bottom 10 fighting for 2 spots for quarters.
All right, that's looking at the whole division. Let's go pool by pool and see how these matchups are going to shake out. We'll start things in Pool A. And here we got Mooncatchers, the number 1 seed coming out of the season. And then we got One Tribe from Bologna, number 8, having a big early win against BFD La Fota, and then maybe cruising a bit down to reality throughout the rest of the season. Then we got XVI, a different Dublin team here in Pool A, number 12. And Is No Good, Steph's old team. He's got the shirt repping it there for the Noisy-le-Sec boys. The last team in, just barely sneaking in over the Heidies. We talked about that a lot on the qualification show. So yeah, Steph, since Isno's here in this pool, what do you see? What do you see in Pool A?
I like to call this one the pool of life. I think Moon got away with a pool that they are going to steamroll. They are the number 1 seed, 12-0 in their qualifying games. They've looked good, and they're going to look even better at the end of pool play because they are going to steamroll through this pool. Even my beloved Isno will only be, part of the street pizza aftermath once they steamroll past. After that, it is, I think it's going to be tough. All 3 of those games or all of those matches between those other 3 teams are going to be tough. But I see One Tribe falling. The ex-Alligators have, as you said, they got a couple big wins at the end of the season. Their summer tour, not that great. They showed up in the last game and gave it to Quixotes when it mattered. However, I don't know if they've got the depth. The Pole Talks are going to have to pull a lot of weight for them. Parodi is going to have to pull a lot of weight, but I really do. I don't mind Is No Good right now. They've got some turnover there. There's a lot of youth on the team this time. They still have their veterans in Quavu Nguyen, Francois Zuber, Maël Maurice. They're still all playing. They're there, and they've got a lot of young talent. They're missing Luca Bouchon, who's out and moving, but yes,
get to that later.
We'll get to that in another pool. So I see this one where it's going to be a toss-up for 2nd and 3rd. I think the way I sliced it up, I got to go back and look because I've played it out so many different ways in my head. But I got XVI taking the 2 seed and Isno taking the 3, while One Tribe are going to fall from their 2nd rung down to the bottom of the pool.
Yeah, a big thing I see there, One Tribe, I noticed that Michele Angela was on their team earlier in this season, but he's not rostered for the EUCF, and I think some of the early season results probably had him involved a lot of touches on that team. So I agree with you. I'm not sure they're going to come out too strongly here, but Amelia, what are your thoughts looking at Pool A?
Yeah, I think Steph's right. I think Moon have been quite fortunate in landing in this pool. I think it gives them quite a gentle Friday. In my kind of breakdown, I've put that I think XVI will be in that 4th position and Isno taking the 3rd spot. XVI have sort of like come out of nowhere. I mean, my experience of UK Frisbee probably is I've only educated myself in the last 3 years, so they may have existed prior to me actually looking at schedules. I think they're good. I think they've given some good games this season, but I think that they were quite fortunate to get to Euros, and so I think that potentially that they won't go into that top 8 bracket. It'll be interesting to see how good Moon are against these teams, whether they are kind of capping them 15-8, 15-7 over and over, or whether there are any close matchups. Kind of one to manage potentially from the leadership of Moon to say whether they coast and they accept that they might win this easily, or whether they push and play through their top roster from the get-go.
Big thing that I'm questioning about with Moon is traditionally, there was this one year, I forget, it was a few years ago, where they beat La Fota in pool play. This was before they were kind of one of those in that top discussion. It was kind of a surprise win. Don Desmarais' kind of breakout game. I think people started to realize, oh, this guy seems pretty good. I think he was involved in like all their breaks back then. And then they plummeted. I think they came 17th in that tournament. They traditionally don't always know how to play at their level against worse teams. And I wonder, in crazy conditions, could that mess with them? Probably not. They are just way more talented. But the one thing that I think will be interesting is how are they going to recover from Worlds? You know that they were crushed in that quarterfinal game against Australia. Can they bounce back and prove themselves? I think this pool will be easy work for them, but can they get that out of their head and pray back to their level? Does it give them hunger, or does it give them, like, are they going to play a little disappointed and down? That's going to be a huge mental challenge for them, and I'm going to get curious to see how they play it out. So I think, if I remember correctly, Steph, you got everyone. I think everyone has Moon winning. Steph, you had XVI, Isno, One Tribe, and Amelia. Did you have what was your final order there?
I put Moon, One Tribe, Isno, XVI.
Oh, okay. So you're still believing in the young Bologneses. All right.
What do you like there, Rav?
I think that actually I'm going a different way than everybody. So I'm going to have Moon, Isno.
Yeah, I should be doing that.
I think Isno are good. I think, like, I played them at Tom's and they played some ranking games, the very, like, lacking roster. They did not bring a full team there. So they're ranked, I think they're under-ranked at 16. And I think they're more experienced at this level than One Tribe and XVI. So I think they're going to bring it, and I think they can handle teams like this there. And then I would say that XVI is going to take the spot and One Tribe will get knocked out. That's how I kind of see it going.
I kind of want to change, but you're absolutely right. Like this team for Isno it's stacked. Like Felix Prieur-Martin, Arthur Udomfont, Clément Giffard, like Benji Fenrich, who is like a huge part of this team is not to be overlooked, and I hope you're right and I'm wrong. Moon also, like, I mean, as you said, the hangover, that loss against Japan, you talked about the last time in Bruges. However, they made the finals last year. They've added Paul Arders, Ben Ort, and Tom Blassman. Like, this team should be that much better. They should have no problem. But Dan Desmarais is over in the U.S. right now. Is that his focus? There's a few things that could change that. But in this group, I don't think so. I think, and then there's always the well-tested versus well-rested. And I think they're going to end up coming out of this pool reasonably well-rested. What will that do down the line?
We'll get there. All right, let's go to Pool B. Let's see how some other of these pools are going to shake out. I do think a lot of people thought that was the softest pool. Things, I think, get way more interesting as we get into Pool B, C, and D here. We got Clapham coming in at number 2. 3SB, a lot of people questioning about do they really earn this high of ranking. They're going to have to prove it here, as they got a pretty tough pool, I think. At least that's my opinion looking at this one. Gentle coming in at number 9, getting the third spot in this pool, and then we're rounding things out with Quixotes from Madrid. And this is a great pool. I'm very excited about this one. I think, Steph, you went first last time, so I'll let Amelia lead us on the Pool B talk.
Yeah, I think that Clapham will be pushed by Gentle. So in my kind of breakdown, I put Clapham will top the pool with Gentle second, 3SB third, and Quixotes fourth. But I must admit, I don't know much about 3SB. I did take a look at Quixotes kind of games throughout the season, and they've pushed some good teams to quite good wins. So they did beat One Tribe 13-12 at the Summer Tour over in France. They've beaten Isno and Groot, and they've beaten Isno twice. So now, on reflection, putting them fourth does feel a bit unfair, but I feel like 3SB potentially, the ranking doesn't lie. Maybe they don't necessarily deserve to be there, but I like to hope that they will come in with that underdog spirit to try and prove themselves to be like, hey, we can make the top 8. So that's why I've put them in the third spot. Clapham, I do believe, are missing 2 kind of key cogs. So I believe Tom Abrams is not coming to Euros. I think he's traveling. And Tom Cartwright at Worlds in Australia did potentially pull or tear a hamstring. So not sure whether they'll be playing. I do think that Clapham have got a very, very deep roster. I know they've taken quite a large team, and then they are really, really kind of pushing to get the double win. So taking the win last year was quite monumental for them, and hopefully they can do it again this year. But Gentle was so good at Elite Invite against teams when I was watching there. And so I think that they will take second in this pool. I think Tobe is coming back for Euros, and clearly they are someone that kind of really energizes the team. They put a lot of trust in them, put a lot of trust and hope, and kind of put up loads of big discs to them. So I think potentially Gentle Clapham will be a close game. Clapham will win, but Gentle to take the second seed comfortably.
Batso, what do you got here?
cue the Toshnarova and John Dock onslaught of comments, but another one for 3SB coming dead last in the pool. The only Czech that's moving on in this pool is David Novak playing for Gentle. But the rest of them are going to be suffering at the bottom of this one.
They've got two. Gentle has 2 Czechs on their team. So.
No, they don't. Do they? I'm looking at the roster. I only got one flag I'm seeing right now. But anyways, so Gentle, I like to take second in this pool. They're going to be good. They were semifinalists last EUCF. Like, this is a team not to mess with. They lose Adon van de Vega. But again, Arthur van de Vega, I see Benji Rees commenting right now, on fire, shooting lasers at Elite Invite. I think he had like 9 assists in the last game. Look out for him again with these kind of targets to shoot for Toby Decran, De Molinare. That's a high potency offense. They could win any game late in the tournament, and I think they'll easily get through. They will get through Quixotes and 3SB. Quixotes, first time in EUCF, I think, and I like the cut of their roster. They've got a whole bunch of guys you're used to seeing playing on the beach that dominate on the sand. Their program has been getting better and better. All Spanish programs have been getting better on the grass, and I think they're really chomping for this opportunity to finally be in. Clapham, the class of the tournament, the class of the continent. They will win this pool with ease. So I see it. Clapham, Gentle, Quixotes, 3SB.
Yeah, Gentle did, I think, get the win over Clapham at Elite Invite, but that was, of course, Clapham was at a wedding and wasn't really full strength there.
We're all used to the wedding Clapham now. It's been 2 years in a row. I think we've got three versions of wedding Clapham that we've seen.
It's terrible planning on their behalf, I'll be honest.
Frisbee sort that out, Clapham.
I mean, the fact that they could still get the 2 seed after going to Tom's with a D-line plus captain's team and going to Elite Invite with a weddingless team just speaks to the depth on this team. And I agree that they're going to come out on top of this pool. Quixotes, I think, really strong team, but I think the quick movement will be a bit mitigated by the windy conditions. So maybe they'll be able to push Gentle in a game if there were stiller conditions. On the other hand, they are used to playing a lot of beach, so they can probably throw in the wind pretty well, but it'll definitely change the way they play to the point that I think Gentle will take that one. And I agree. I have Clapham, Gentle, Quixotes, and then 3SB knocked out of this pool. And in the chat there, the other check on Gentle, just to get it out there, is Joachim Krushak, number 10. They do have 2. So there will be 2 checks moving on to the bracket from this.
I'm going to have to fix that in ComSource. He's got the wrong flag next to his name. But you're absolutely right on all parts there.
All right, that's it for Pool B. Let's go to Pool C. Pool C, another tough one. We got La Fota, the 3 seed, coming in. Then you got Chalk from Pornichet, number 5. Ranelagh from another Dublin team, number 10. And Bad Skid from Heilbronn, number 15. This has got a lot of names with a lot of history. And Steph, you get to go first here.
Pool of Death. This is the toughest one to pick. I do have it going to Chalk, but I'm going to start at the bottom here. Bad Skid, a team coming fourth that has Nico Mueller, Steph Doscher, and 3 Boyton Muellers. I don't know how I can possibly make a sane prediction to say that team is going to be fourth, but it's them or Ranelagh. I think the bottom, I think that there's a top 2 and a bottom 2 here, and really I think they could swap either way. The top 2, again, Chalk, I said I got them locked as a top 6. Again, who have they added that's not regularly on their Pornichet team? Enzo Forget pretty much ran the offense in the late stages of Worlds for Team France. Simon Ruel, one of the top defensive players in France, and Leo Stanguenic, who was one of the best players on the beach when France won the World Championship. That they're putting a lot of great players. I mean, imagine they still had Kais Mate and Quentin Roger. Oh, no, wait, they're on the other side over there in Bologna right now. But those 2, they might be wondering, well, did we make the right decision here? Bologna, good as always. They get a little bit of aging going on there. There's, their core. They got Coppi, Trombetti. They've got Mastroianni, a couple of their old boys. Their regulars are going to be strong. Laffi, Gasperini, Tognetti, Santucci. There's so many good players there. One, and Seba Rossi, the best player in Italy right now. But the second best player in Italy right now, nowhere to be seen, Ravi. Where's David Barsazi? Apparently wasn't able to commit to enough training time, and La Fota have left him off the roster. And I wonder if that might be the difference between them being second or first in this pool. I am taking them as first, but I think that game, the Friday night game, is going to be an absolute cracker.
Jacques Lafota will pencil it in. Before I get to your thoughts, Amelia, I do want to say that I think it being windy does give Ranelagh maybe a fighting chance. As they're from Ireland, Pornichet is also a bit windy, but I feel like the conditions feel a little more Irish than Southern French, not Southern, but Jock. So maybe that'll favor them a little bit. But Amelia, what are your thoughts looking at Pool C?
I think this is a awful pool to be in. I know that when you did the pool release show, I imagine the players on this team kind of cringed a little bit as you released who they were going up against. It's one of the pools that if you threw all 4 names up into the air and they landed in 1, 2, and 3, 4, regardless of what it was, I don't think it would be too much of a shock. Ranelagh did win Euros in 2022, so they have a huge amount of players on that team who I imagine have stayed on, a lot of experience. They've had some great results this year, but I did put them coming 4th, which does feel like an insult. But Bad Skid, I feel like necessarily haven't had the opportunity this season to be able to stretch their legs. You mentioned some really noticeable players' names. I've always really enjoyed watching Bad Skid. I know they pushed Clapham a couple of years ago, and so I put them coming 3rd. But I think, in my opinion, BFD have a kind of next level gear that they can go into that Shaq potentially can't. So I'm really looking forward to seeing those two go head to head. I hope that's a streamed game because I think that's going to be probably the best of the pool.
Last game on Friday night.
There you are. But yeah, this pool makes me feel a bit uneasy because I wouldn't put money on it.
Yeah, I think I'm going to pick Chalk to win this one. I think that BFD traditionally have dropped games of pools. We talked about back when they lost a game to Mooncatchers early in a pool back in that edition of UCF in Bruges. They lost to Ranelagh in a game that got lightning delayed one time early in pool play. They don't always have it together, especially if they're going to lose pieces like Barsazi, which I've always said that I think Lafota underrates Barsazi. They didn't put him in on Universe against Mooncatchers, and that was, I think, the ridiculous decision to not have him in on Universe.
That's another big factor. Andrea Gerosa, coach of Lafota, I hope he will have learned from that, having Barsazi on the bench. Well, obviously not. They put him all
the way on the bench now. He's on another bench.
But putting Roger and Gatti on a D-line Universe point when one of the biggest studs in the game is on the sidelines. So we'll see. But yes, they do have the pedigree. They've done it so many times. I'm not worried about Lafota not going to the quarters. But I think, missing one superstar player could be the difference in winning a semi or, winning a final.
Or a pool play game in this pool against Chalk. Like, I seriously think that Chalk might have it to win that game. Now, I don't know. I actually might favor Ranelagh to beat Chalk. So I kind of am thinking there might be a 3-way tie in the top of this pool. And sadly, I think Bad Skid could sneak a win, but I think they are, you talk about aging a little bit, maybe, and that they're not the deepest team. And I do remember I believe it was the Bruges UCF, they had a quarter or a pre-quarter against Ranelagh, and they played like a really terrible game there and just couldn't play the conditions well. So I have it a little in my head that I think they're going to be the odd ones out because of conditions. If it was a still game, a still day, I think they would have a better chance to beat some of these teams. But I think I'm going to go with Chalk, Lafota, Ranelagh, and Bad Skid out. That's my picks. So I think we didn't get your full ones yet, Steph.
I am going to Chalk. Sorry.
After all the pool of death stuff, it's still going Chalk.
All of this pool of death, yeah. I think that I could draw it up 3 different ways, 4 different ways, but I am going to take, but Lafota's going to win that game on Friday night. I think it's going to be an absolute barn burner. And I think every game in this pool is going to be very worthy entertainment. But I do see Bologna, Chalk, Ranelagh, Bad Skid.
All right, let's get to Pool D. Pool D, another, in my money, pretty spicy one. We got Wall City, the 4th seed, coming in. Chevron Action Flash has been mentioned by Amelia already once. Costa Rica Grandes, number 11, and Hrutz from Amsterdam, number 13. I think Steph got the rundown, the last one to start off. So Amelia, it's your turn to lead us off here.
Yeah, so I think we can probably write off Corte. So how am I saying it? Sorry, I don't want to mispronounce it.
Costa Rica.
Costa Rica. I think we can potentially put them fourth, which might be mean, but I'm like, they're fourth. I think Groot not to be underestimated. I've watched a few of their games this season. They've got a real fighting spirit. They're obviously trying to match the women's success. They have had a fantastic season and are going to be pushing to take the win at Euros. So I feel like there's a lot of energy within the club as a whole to kind of be supporting each other. They're always sidelining each other, encouraging people on. And Groot have now got Walt Janssen back. And sometimes in a pool game, when you just need to come third or second to go into bracket play, you just need that one standout player to kind of really drive the offense forward. And I think Walt potentially has all the tools in his arsenal to be able to do that. But the big game comes down to Wall and Chev. Now, Wall City, a lot of those players were on that German national team over in Australia. They had a really good tournament. But as much as they probably had an amazing time, I do imagine a large portion of their team are starting to feel a little bit fatigued and potentially burnt out. Whereas Chevy have a significantly smaller number of players that were on the teams out in Australia on the GB side. I think maybe probably like 5 or 6. So I've put Chev taking the win based on just legs alone. I think that recovery from Australia to now, as much as it's been like 2-3 weeks, it's not enough, especially if they've been playing pickup in between or German nationals or whatever there has been between Australia and now. I think Chev take the win. I think it's a close game, maybe 2 points in it, but I see Chev taking the pool here.
All right, Steph.
Yeah, this one, if Pool C is the pool of death, or C is the pool of death, Pool D is the pool of the mortally wounded, nearly dead. I'm not dead yet. But I think the same. Costa Rica Grandes are very good. They pick up Toby Mine. They got Bavia, the kid who looks like a 35-year-old, but he's 18. Andrea Fantini, a bunch of people. Balducci. It's a very polished roster. JJ Festa is going to hate me for it, but I do think that they are the 4th seed in this very tough pool. Again, I like Groot for all the reasons that Amelia expressed there. A bit more savvy veteranship, a guy like Walt who can really take the game into his own hands, but they've got more size. They've got more people who can, they're used to playing in inclement weather. And I think Groot is going to win that battle. Again, top of this, and again, I think it's those two are fighting for the 3rd place. I don't think Groot can beat Wall and Chevy. Top of the pool, I've got Wall City taking Chevron. That game is going on at the same time as the La Fota Chalk game. Those are the 2 stream games at the same time. So, I mean, people will have to have split screen action going on for this game. Wall City, why I see them winning is, again, what they gain from last year. Okay, we saw them at Elite Invite. You get Ferdia Rogers and you get Riedlo, 2 all-star players joining the roster. The Germans, you can never write them off. As Benji tells you, they were awesome in Australia. This is not Wall City, but there were a lot of them on that team. As you mentioned, Amelia, I think they are, hard chiseled. Those 2 pieces have had now 2 months since Elite Invite to fit in, to find their footing. But the other thing is they finally got the bench boss, and maybe one of the best bench bosses in the game. So they've had all season. Brian Jones has been consulting and doing online coaching for them. And now he's getting on the plane, jumping over the puddle, and he'll be there on the sideline. And I think that is going to be a big difference. Chevron, again, a class team. They beat Clapham in that huge final last year. They showed up and backed it up this year. Like when Clapham would have been like out for revenge, they got it. They got the win, but they had to fight tooth and nail to knock Chevy off. Chevy were great at Elite Invite. I think they are going to be good, and I think they're going to go deep, as you'll see later when I reveal my bracket. But I think they will go deep. But in this pool, I think yeah, Wall City's going to inch them out and take the pool. So Wall City 1, Chev 2, Grut 3, Costa Rica 4.
Yeah, when I look at this, I think that knowing Hrut pretty well and looking at the matchups, I think actually Hrut have a better chance of beating Wall City than of beating Chevy. I think they just can't match up with Chevy's athleticism and size and what they're so good at. But Wall City's a team that I think is a good matchup for them. And then, but I also agree with Steph that I think Wall City is going to beat Chevron. So I'm actually calling for a three-way tie. I do think Wall City are the favorites for Hrut, but I'll back my fellow Dutch people a little bit on this one and say that maybe they steal a win when Wall City's maybe a bit too focused on Chevron. And there'll be a three-way tie, but I think it's still going to shake out that Wall City it goes 1 Wall City, 2 Chevy, and 3 Hrut. And Costa Rica, like, don't count them out. I know we're all counting them as the team that's going to lose. If any team overlooks them because they're so focused on the rest of this pool, they could steal a win. They're very young. They're very strong. A lot of good youth talent coming out of Rimini. They know how to play in the wind. They're from a windy city. Like,
Yeah,
I think
they are stacked too. Like that team is very good. Paradisi, Tonelli, like adding Toby Mine, who's like a pure thrower. This is the pool of the mortally wounded.
All right, let's go to get a big look at the full set here, and we'll talk about our picks going into this one. Let's start things off with Amelia. Why don't you give us your semis? I mean, if you want to walk through the whole bracket, you can, but all we really care about here is who do you got in semis, who do you got in finals, who do you got winning this whole thing?
Semis, I have Moon and Chev, Clapham, BFD. I put Moon and Clapham in the final with Clapham taking the win.
All right, Steph, what do you got?
A little bit different. I think I get so top seeds take their walk into the quarters, and most of them advance. But I think after Chevy loses to Wall City, they're going to find a way to get through La Fota. So I see Moon Wall City as one semi, and Clapham Chev, the all UK, is the other semi. I think Clapham will get through, and they're going to play Wall City. Down comes the hammer on every single break on both sides for the final. And same old. I got Clapham taking another European championship.
So I got it here with, Moon, Clapham advancing. I had Chalk winning Pool C, so they're going to be my number one there. And the rest of them were the top seeds. So then that means I have La Fota as 2C, which means they're going to be facing Wall City in the quarter. And because I do think they're going to come over whoever comes out of 3B. And then I've got, let's see, that means I've got, where's my Chevy? I've got my 2D coming in at the bottom. They're going to be facing up against Chalk. And then, so I'm going to take Chevy over Chalk in that one. I think later on down the stretch, they're going to have that one. 1B, I got Clapham and Moon moving on to the semis easily. And then in Wall City versus La Fota, I will take, I'm going to take La Fota to win that one. So that's, you know what? No, I'm going to take Wall City to win that one. I think with losing Barsazi and all this stuff going on, Wall City can actually take that game. It's going to be Wall City versus Moon on one side and Clapham versus, Chevy on the other side. So that'll have Clapham and Moon advancing. I think that's going to be the final. We all knew it's going to be the final. And I think Clapham takes it. And I don't think it'll be closer than last year, but I just think at full strength, Clapham is too good this year, and they're going to win it out.
Do you think if we all have the same agreement that it's going to be a Clapham Moon final, maybe instead we should guess what the score is going to be?
I got Clapham Wall. I got Wall City taking down
Moon.
Moon.
Of course, okay.
Am I very confident in any of these picks? No. But anything could happen. But go ahead, give us a score, Meals. What's it going to be?
I think based on chatting to a few of the Clapham lot, they really, really want this. But I know that Moon are also going to be coming back for revenge after kind of getting a bit embarrassed in the final last time. So I can see it being 15-11.
15-11. Still a comfortable win. Yeah, all I'm saying is bad business decision. I'm reiterating Lorcan's comment or chat for BFD La Fota not taking the businessman David Barsazi. That's why I've got them falling off. What a silly decision, gentlemen.
All right. Yeah, I was actually gonna guess 15-11 myself, but since you guessed it, I have to go off that a little bit. Since it is the tiebreaker, I will say that. Do I believe it's more towards 15-10 or 15-12? 15-11 is really like exactly where I feel that it's probably going to be. And I think I'll edge towards 15-12. I think well, let's hope for a closer game, and I'll try to will it into existence. All right, thanks Amelia, thanks Steph. We're going to take another quick break. We'll be back with the women's division shortly.
Thanks.
See ya.
All right, we're back here for what I think is the most exciting division of the EUCF. Joined here by Gigi Morrison and Lou Burgess. How are y'all feeling in this prep tournament? I'm going to start with Gigi, given that you must have had a roller coaster of emotion as your team qualified for the EUCF and then, I guess, decided not to go. How are you feeling right now?
Sorry, I missed all of that. My connection must have cut out. Could you repeat that?
Oh, sure. I'll repeat it. I just said that I wanted to start off with you. You had must have had a roller coaster of emotion, given that your team qualified out of this crazy system just barely, and then decided not to go. So, how are you feeling in this lead up to the EUCF?
Oh, I've got a lot of FOMO. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, pretty gutted that we're not able to go. Very happy for my teammate because she's getting married, so that's really exciting. But it's also quite nice to kind of see from an outside perspective now, seeing how Euros is going to pan out, because it's been so difficult to predict all season how games are going to play out. But it could be quite spicy. I don't know. It should be fun.
All right, and Lou, you've been observing this new system, new season for the whole year. What have been your thoughts looking at this whole thing unfold?
I mean, it's great to see all of the top teams kind of coming out and showing up for the whole season. I have to say, though, I do miss the games to go to Euros. For me, UK Nationals in particular this year was less hype. You know, I wanted to see a 4-5 playoff, a spot at Euros or something crazy like that, which is always a bit more hype than just watching Chevy and Clapham go at each other in the Open Division. And for example. So I do miss the games to go, but the ranking system's cool. Also a big fan of a 16-team Open Division. That's what it should have been years ago, in my opinion. But yeah, I'm excited for EUCF.
We caught up eventually. All right, so let's take a look at the overall women's division, which, as I've said through this whole year, has been the one I'm looking forward to the most. And when we see the breakdown of the whole thing with all the pools up on the screen, what are the storylines here of this division? I'll start with Lou. What's your storyline that you're looking to follow in this women's division?
So the top end is extremely strong. You know, Yaka, Shout, Jinx, all looking phenomenal all season long. I do think 3SB are a little overranked. They had a slightly weaker sort of field of teams that they've played against throughout the season. Still a strong team. And then below that, East Block Group, Moon Cup. Again, all those teams can take games off each other, no problem. For me, there's a bit of a drop-off after the top 6 or so teams. And I think we'll get into my thoughts on the pools as we go through. But I think the main storyline is the top is kind of decided with those teams making quarters, and then the bottom end is less threatening than in some of the other divisions, maybe.
All right, Gigi, what are you looking at now as an observer of this division at the EUCF?
I mean, I'm looking at what really I can say is kind of the benefit of this ranking system is that it's laid everything out almost, I don't know, I wouldn't say as it should be, but just how all of the teams have performed throughout the season, it seems pretty perfect. Like, I'd say there's only maybe one pool that is quite spicy, but I don't know. For my predictions, it's kind of going as it's already laid out. Again, bar one pool, but we'll get into that.
Yeah, so I think the excitement in this pool is gonna. I agree with both of you that I'm very excited for things in this division once we get to quarterfinals. When we get to through pool play, maybe we're not going to get as much excitement, but once we get to those quarterfinals, I think it's going to be a phenomenal division, and I think there's more teams here that might take the title than in any other division. So that's going to be super exciting. But let's start off looking pool by pool, and we'll start with Pool A. In Pool A, we've got Yaka from Noisy-le-Sec coming out as the 1 seed. Number 7, Moon Cup, taking the 2nd seed in this pool. Number 10, Ketchup Graz, and number 16, Jet Set Leuven, who are very thankful, Gigi, that Smog offered them a spot so kindly at the end of the season. So let's start things off with Gigi. What are your thoughts looking at Pool A?
Yeah, as Lou kind of alluded to a second ago, there is a bit of a drop-off, and that's kind of shown within this pool. You've got the highest ranked and the very lowest rank, and the actual ranking points disparity is quite big between the first team and the fourth team in this pool. I think Yaka are going to have, they're going to storm through this pool. They've got some of the usual names that you'd expect attending. So they've got Mondio, Castillo, Paula Bass, Lacoste Lefebvre, Babican Diosol. They've got some of the biggest names that you could have in women's ultimate in Europe playing at this tournament. And it's, the only losses that they've taken so far have been against Jinx. So that's, they've not really played up against any of the other teams within this pool. Moon Cup have had some close games at Spring Invites. They have also played up against Jet Set previously, winning that on Universe. So I'm not sure whether that truly displays the quality between these teams. It's kind of difficult to say. Catch Up have also played up against Jet Set, taking a loss and a win against them. Yaka, I feel like are just going to absolutely storm through this one.
All right, Lou, your thoughts on Pool A?
Yeah, I agree. Yaka, absolutely stacked team. They've comfortably, they took the number 1 ranked seed at the end of the regular season in very deserved fashion. I do think Moon Cup has potential to take a game off Yaka. Maybe the pool stage is where that happens. If Yaka's just thinking they're going to stroll through this pool, no problem. A peak Moon Cup does have the talent to take a game, but I mean, I'm not actually going to pick that as the final results. I do think Catch Up and Jet Set are comfortably bottom 2. Great experience for Jet Set though, getting to go play UCF.
Yeah, I think this pool's a little bit spicier than maybe you two have let on so far. I think that, well, one thing I noticed on Yaka's roster is they're missing Caroline Thyssen, who has been a pretty key player for them throughout the whole season, not going to be there for EUCF. I don't know. Of course, they're a very deep team. They have all the players that Gigi mentioned, so they will still be very strong. I do think Moon Cup, we saw Carmen Lagala play extremely well for the Italian mixed team at Worlds, and they have the likes of the Borneau sisters and all kinds of talent. Maywin Leduc has been a phenomenal all season. And I think Ketchup Graz are a sneaky, decent team, a little top heavy maybe, but they have some very good stars there that can push a game out of these teams. Do I think I'm really going to pick many upsets here? No, I do think it's going to go to chalk, but I do think we'll get some good games, especially the Yaka Moon Cup game and maybe the Moon Cup catch-up game will be quite good games out of this pool.
Oh yeah, definitely. Even throughout this season, Moon Cup have played against Yaka. They took them up to 15-12, so Yaka still won in that game, but that's a pretty tight scoreline.
Yeah. So is anybody picking anything besides chalk here, or did I hear right that everyone's picking this going straight down?
Yeah, it's going to chalk.
Yeah, I think Yaka, Moon Cup. Jet Set have beaten Catch Up before, so I think that could be also a very spicy game. Who's going to take that final spot in contention to get into the quarters? That's definitely a game to watch out for.
All right. Yeah, definitely could be one. So Yeah, I think if I had to pick, I would probably also pick it going to chalk. But like you said, that Jet Set catch up one, that's basically could be basically an elimination game. So will be very exciting to see. All right, let's move on to Pool B. In Pool B, we've got BFD Shout, Iceni, the number 8 seed, LMU, number 12. There's a couple London teams here in this pool, and Box Vienna, and is number 14, coming in to round this pool out. Who did I start last time? I think I started GG last time, right? So I think we'll go to Lou to kick us off for Pool B.
So Shout are the obvious favorites in this pool. Again, deserved rank 2 coming in off the regular season. There is serious three-way tie potential at the bottom of this pool between Iceni, LMU, and Box. All those teams have potential to take games off each other. For me, I think Iceni is going to come out on top of LMU and LMU over Box, but the margins could be 1 or 2 points in each of those games. This is a pretty spicy pool.
Yeah,
Gigi,
I'd
any
very
other
much
thoughts?
agree with. Yeah, I'd very much agree with you, Lou. Like the Shouts haven't really. They've been challenged throughout the season. They've taken some tough losses. So they took a loss to East Block 13-15 at some point in the season, and to Jinx 11-14. So it's still pretty close games. They've won 10 other games throughout the season, so they're really pushing for a medal. They've got some additions of, well, I say additions, they've got some big names playing already, but just looking like Avamula, and I noticed that Sinead Dunn is also playing for Shaq, which I think is quite interesting. I would agree that Iceni would take the LMU Box title, so I think they would take second in the pool. Having seen their roster, I don't believe they're really missing many players, if any. I know that they're missing Yasmin Gill. That was the one that I noticed, possibly because I'm good friends with Yaz. But LMU are missing a few players. They're missing Jenna Thompson, Alex Denzel-Young, Alex Nevitt, Karen Kwok. So the legs are running a bit thin for LMU, unfortunately. But Box could really push for that final spot in for quarters.
Yeah, and so I'm looking here and I see that Box actually did beat Iceni once, and they've traded 2 games to Iceni at Elite Invite. And yeah, so if you tell me what you've just said about LMU with their numbers, I think they're probably going to come out the bottom of this pool. I think Box has shown they're strong enough to, if LMU's a bit weaker, they can take that spot from them. I will note that Shout is missing a few star players. Irena Scazzieri is not on the roster, who is probably their best player. Lasma Kublitska has been playing with them, the Latvian, all season, and at least she played with them at Elite Invite, is not on the roster for them. Charlotte Schall apparently was on the roster for them, but also not there. So they have had a very strong season in the number 2 seed. I still think they'll probably take this pool. But yeah, Iceni, they haven't played Shout this season, but if I look at some of the mutual results against East Block, they both lost by 2. Against Jinx, the Shout lost by 3, and Iceni lost by 4. And Moon Cup, Shout has 2 wins. Iceni has a loss and a win. And against Box, they have similar score margins, but Iceni has that loss. So yeah, Iceni's results a little bit lower, but maybe if Shout's missing some players, some key, really strong players. I mean, you all know Iceni probably a little better than I do since you're from that side of Europe. Do you think, knowing a little bit more about that, missing like 3 or 4 top players, does Iceni have a shot to take Shout out here?
I think from experience of playing against Iceni and Shout actually this season, I've played against both of them. The main difference is something that you've already mentioned, is depth. Shout have so much depth as a team, and it gives them absolute credit as to how they're able to push through adversity in that sense, because they've got that to fall back and rely on. Iceni, whilst they do have a strong level of depth as well, it's just nowhere near the same capacity that Shout have. Iceni, though, are gritty, so whenever they're pushed into a corner, they will try and fight their way out. So they will definitely give Shout a strong game. I think it's probably going to be one of the closest pool games that we'll see maybe throughout the women's division. But I still think Shout have got that extra margin to pull out of it.
And Lou, what do you think about the conditions? So we've already talked a little about roster differences and Shout's a bit deeper. Maybe Iceni has some top end and grit. Do you think the conditions favor one of these two teams a little bit, or what do you think there?
Yeah, I still think the conditions favor Shout. I think they win on talent and experience over Iceni. There's a bunch of quite new young players on that Iceni roster who don't have the EUCF experience that Shout has. And I think it's a similar story. The reason I'm picking LMU over Box in the pool is for the same reason. In bad conditions, LMU win on experience.
All right. So, yeah, I think I was trying to talk somebody into Iceni over Shout. I think I haven't even talked myself into it. In the end, I do think Shout are the stronger outfit, just trying to keep the show a bit interesting. But I do have Box over LMU and Iceni taking the second spot. Okay, let's go to Pool C. Pool C, we have number 3 ranked 3SB. I think it's nice that they got the 3rd ranked. It's kind of cute with their name. Number 6, Grut from Amsterdam. Number 9, Bristol from Bristol. And number 13, Fabulous from Bern. So, yeah, whichever one of you wants to take a stab at starting this one off.
Shall I back up my previous comments about 3SB being overranked?
Here. How overranked do you think they are?
Yeah, so if you look... I've got them second in this pool. I've got Grut winning this. I've been super impressed with the Grut women's team performance this season. That Universe Point game against Jinx at Windmill was extremely hype. And I think they're going to get the job done over 3SB. 3SB, throughout this regular season, have played a weaker field of teams compared to Grut. And I think that's what's bumped them up in the rankings. It's like a quirk of the algorithm. But for me, Grut is the stronger outfit. And then after that, I'm picking Bristol to come 3rd and Fab to come 4th in this pool.
All right, Gigi, what do you see here?
I can definitely see what you mean, Lou. And I think for the most part, I agree with you, definitely. 3SB... they've only been able to attend 2 ranking tournaments, and it has been against a much smaller pool of teams to be able to compare it to. So one of them being at Summer Tour, they played against East Block. The very first game, they lost 9-15. So it's a pretty convincing scoreline for East Block to take that. But then later on, they did manage to win 13-10, and East Block are the Czech women's, like they're the champions. So it's really difficult to predict how 3SB are actually going to perform at EUCF because of that. But saying that, Grut throughout the season have proven time and time again how impressive they are. They've taken 3 losses. They've got a 9-3 record. 2 of those losses have been to BFD Shout, 10-13 and 10-15. The only other loss that they've had is against Jinx on Universe Point in the Windmill final. And that was an incredible game. Highlight reels all over the place. Aurora Leznik, incredible. My goodness. But I would say that in this circumstance for this pool, Grut will take the first spot over 3SB. Bristol, I've been impressed time and time again by this team. And getting to play against them this season, whilst it's frustrating having to lose to them, they just show again how fiery they are. They do have a strong level of depth. They do have Molly Wedge, but they are missing Ellie Payne and Nat Oldfield, and they have been 2 really key and pivotal, more quiet players, so players that don't necessarily gather up as many stats, except for Nat Oldfield. She does get a lot of goals. So I'm not sure how that's going to play out for Bristol. I still think it will allow them to hold that 3rd position and bring them in for the quarters. Fab did have a close game against Grut earlier on in the season. That was 11-13, and they do have some of the usual names. They have Olivia Hauser, Janneke Kappelman, Laura Niederhauser. They're representing. I just don't think it's going to give them that edge that they need to take Bristol and Grut. I think that Fab will end up fourth in this pool. But Pool C, I think, is the spicy pool.
Yeah, I think I agree. One thing also worth mentioning, since that amazing windmill final, Krut have picked up Sarah Eklund, just to push things up one more notch. I do think they're the class of this pool. I think 3SB, although people, we've said on the show a lot, and the agreement is here that they've played the algorithm well. I will put it that way, that they've won the games hard that they've needed to win. But even in Windmill, where I believe they're missing both the Toshnarova sisters, as Rahel was commentating, and I think Sarah wasn't there, even without those two strong players, I think they still made semis and maybe even got a bronze in that tournament. So very, very strong team and should not be overlooked. Is a very, very good team. I just think they got a little unlucky here with Krut being their 2 seed. I think they could have won if they got some of the other 2 seeds in their pools, but Krut is just that strong. I do favor them to take second in the pool here, 3SB. For the bottom, I think Bristol's the stronger team. Fabulous is a bit aged out. Swiss Ultimate on the open women's side has not been as strong as it used to be. But I will say that in Crazy Wind, Olivia Hauser has been one of the best throwers in the wind in the women's division in Europe for over a decade. And yes, she might be a little older than some of her competition, but in these conditions, that could be an X factor. I've seen Bristol play, I think it was Bristol, play an extremely sloppy game in windy conditions at Tom's Tourney. It was years ago, I think 2019, and I know that's very different now, but I think in that, because the conditions, that does make that game a lot more interesting. Am I really going to pick Fabulous to take it? I'm not sure, but I think that it'll be closer than it would have been in still conditions. So I think this could be a very spicy pool, but I see it finishing, I think, as you do, Krutz, 3SB, and yeah, just make it fun. I'll say Fabulous over Bristol to round it out.
Ooh, spicy.
Okay, let's go to Pool D. All right, now we've got Jinx Midnight from Berlin, number 4, East Block number 5. So it doesn't always happen with pool draws, but we do get the 4-5 matchup in pool play, so that's nice to see. Another spicy thing here, Troubles Warsaw number 11, and we'll get into why that's spicy later. And then the 17th ranked team, again in here because the 15th ranked team decided not to go. Woof from Bruges, also because they won the wild card in Chambéry. They were going to go either way. So let's start things off. Gigi, you get to start us off here with Pool D.
Yeah, Jinx is another team that I've been so impressed with all season. That windmill final was just, it's a game that I always want to rewatch. They've got a 9-2 record, so they've I say hilariously, interestingly enough, one of their losses has been against Troubles, which is possibly the spicy thing that you're talking about. So I'm assuming it was some sort of friendly that they organized, maybe to get some extra games for the ranking system.
Yeah,
but
Jinx they needed a last game. They actually ended up getting another one later, so I think they had 11 games in the system total, but at that point they weren't sure, so they invited Troubles over. It was in Berlin. From what I heard, maybe some of their travel players were not in. They did have some of their top players there, and from what I heard, they just didn't have a great game. It was windy. It was on like a hockey turf, so it was weird conditions, but like still, Troubles came out, got the win. And actually, part of the reason that 3SB is ranked so highly is because 3SB has a big win, I think like 12-7 or something over Troubles, and because Troubles had the win over Jinx, that's part of what like pushed 3SB up. So anyways, that's just to give some more context about the Jinx Troubles win, but go on, Gigi.
Yeah, no, that definitely helps. Because Troubles have done certainly well in the European scene before. Like they finished 7th last year at Euros, so they're definitely a team that could push up or at least hold some sort of contention in this pool. I do think Jinx will still take it. They've again got the usual names. They've got Nikki Priyan, Anna Gianna.
4th at Euros last year. Troubles.
4th.
Yeah, they actually beat East Block, I believe, beat East Block on Universe 14-13 in quarters last year. So that was spicy revenge match there. Another bit of spice in this pool.
But yeah, Jinx with the usual names coming up. They've got Livka back from Australia. They've got Anna Gianna, Nikki Priyan, Sarah Melvin coming over from Ireland, which is amazing. East Block recently won Czech Nationals, which is incredible. They've only played against Troubles in this pool so far this season. That was 14-7 in their favor. I think East Block could push Jinx quite hard, but I still think Jinx is going to inch out ever so slightly. Wolf hasn't played. They've met up against quite a wide variety of teams. They've got a really holistic ranking score, I would say. They've probably been able to get quite an accurate one. They played 9 games that were teams that did not qualify for EUCF, though, which is quite interesting. So out of the 15 games, they've only had 5 in which teams are also playing Euros. So I don't really know how they're going to fare in this pool, to be honest. I do think it's going to go as it sits, though.
All right, Lou, what are your thoughts this Pool D? Got the 4-5 matchup. What do you think?
I mean, we've been having some very reasonable takes, and I want to just put my cards on the table. And be like, all East Block, baby. Let's go.
You're on the Benji Reese train.
Yes.
That lags my camera, so I'll turn it off. Yeah, they've got Christina Tista. She's one of the best players in Europe right now. They've got Valerio Yanni, their coach, has been over there this season. One of the best coaches in Europe, if not the world. He's been putting in a ton of work on his total ultimate philosophy, which includes mental toughness, which will be important within that revenge matchup against Troubles, who knocked East Block out at quarterfinals last year. Yeah, of course, Jinx is the team to beat in this pool. They've got a target on their backs, but I think they are a beatable team. East Block has the talent to take a game off them. I'm backing them to do it. The other storyline in this pool is that Woofer here having won a wildcard spot by beating Sick in the final of
Chambéry
Summer Tour,
I believe.
Yeah. So yeah, heartbreak for Sick. Because I think did Sick finish higher in the rankings overall? No, they didn't. But they were pretty close to sneaking in on that wildcard spot. But I don't see Worth beating either Troubles or East Block or Jinx in this one. So I've got Jinx coming second after East Block power their way through, and then Troubles beating Worth to finish third.
All right. I think if I have to have it here, that Jinx East Block game I think is going to be great. I do think that the windy conditions favor a bit more the Jinx style of play than the East Block style of play. That quick movement is going to be mitigated by you don't want to have to throw a lot of passes to score in really windy conditions. So I think I favor Jinx based on the conditions. So I think that there's going to be some great games in this pool, but I do think it's going to go down to chalk and be Jinx, East Block, Troubles, Wolf in order. I think Wolf will be a bit outclassed, and Troubles... I wouldn't be shocked if Troubles snuck a win against Jinx, especially because they've already beaten them in windy conditions before. So I think they have a better chance to beat Jinx than East Block does in this pool. But yeah, it's going to be a great one. It's going to be a great one. All right, let's get down to it. Let's put our chips on the table and see what everyone has for the final picks of the night. Here we go, the women's division, and Lou, you already mentioned your spicy pick. So how does the rest of it play out?
Yeah, let's go East Block. All right. So having done some bracketology, we're going to end up with a Yaka East Block semi. That's the consequence of my picks. I've got East Block taking that, obviously, and then on the other side of things, we've got Shout versus Jinx will be the other semi. I think Jinx will take that this year. They're absolutely the team to beat at this tournament. And then, of course, East Block taking it in the final. Let's go.
It's going to be a rematch, Pool D rematch in the final of Jinx East Block. Did I get that right? Okay. So all the talents in Pool D.
Yeah,
All right, Gigi, how do you have things shaken out here? My bracket's a bit different than that, I'll tell you that much.
I'm trying to make sure that I got my brackets correct.
He has Jinx losing, so it changes things completely.
I got my brackets wrong.
Oh yeah, don't compare yourself.
No,
to
I messed up my brackets. Hang on, I wrote it down in a different page, and I think that one was correct.
All right, I'll let you. I'll talk through my bracket while you rework yours out. I think that Yaka coming out of 1A. What do they got? 2B. You got I have Iceni there, And 3C, no, that'll be Fab for me. No, that's Yaka is going to semis. That's pretty easy. 1D, I have Jinx going through. They're going to take there, I think 3SB Jinx. That could be a spicy quarter, but I do think Jinx will take it. So we'll get Jinx Yaka on one side. I have Jinx winning that one. On the other side, I'll have Hrut as the 1C. They're going to go up against East Block in a quarter. That one will be very spicy, but I do have Hrut taking that one down. And then against 1B, we've got Hrut versus Shout. I actually have Hrut winning against Shout because I think Shout's down too many top players. So I think Hrut's going to be in the final against Jinx, and we're going to get a rematch of that Windmill final. And I think with the addition of Sarah Eklund, who was on Jinx and has traded sides and might help them, give them a little bit of intel, Hrut's going to take it and win the women's division here at the EUCF. Gigi, what's your bracket look like?
Okay, my bracket was correct in the first place, but here we are. I'm going same as you, Yaka Jinx in the first semi, Shout Hrut. I think Jinx take the win against Yaka. My brain says Shout. My heart wants Hrut, just because I love the storyline. I think coming from a team that was originally mixed and is now women's team, so moving to single gender, and Hrut having followed that same path, I really want Hrut to take it, but I don't know. The depth in Shout is just it could take it for them, to be perfectly honest, particularly when we're looking at some spicy conditions throughout the tournament. And then Jinx to take the gold.
I missed a little bit on that Hrut Shout one. Which one did you pick in the end? Because
I chose Shout.
Okay, you did choose. You went with your head.
Yeah. I went with logic rather than heart, and I might regret it, but I want to regret it in this circumstance.
You win either way.
Yeah.
All right, so we have three. You have Jinx winning. I had Hrut winning, and Lou has East Block all the way. So three completely different picks for the women's division, and I think that when we get there to those quarterfinal games, I mean that East Block Hrut that I have picked there, that one's going to be amazing. Jinx 3SB in conditions, I think that don't count out 3SB in that game. They're a good team, and they could definitely take it to Jinx on the right day. So I'm extremely excited to this division once we get to quarterfinals. I think every game from quarterfinals on is going to be amazing. So I can't wait. All right, thanks, Gigi. Thanks, Lou. I will close things out here. We've almost been going for 2 hours, but EUCF's amazing, and we got a lot of great panelists. I want to thank all the panelists for coming on. Thanks, Nemo, for producing in the background, and we'll see you in a couple days at the EUCF.